Today, the workplace is more dynamic and diverse than it's ever been. 4 generations coming together to contribute to our economy's growth. But new challenges in the workplace are growing each and every day. This podcast brings corporate leaders to you, sharing solutions and strategies to enhance your company's culture and bring your people together. Rise Up For You presents its newest podcast series, Workplace Solutions. People matter.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jacqueline Haven, the CEO and founder of Rise Up For You. And I know most of you are familiar with me. So excited to be here for our Rise Up For You podcast series, Business and Workplace Solutions. And even more excited to bring our guest to you today, Jacqueline Haven. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about our conversation today. I know we talked a little bit offline before we hopped in, but before we jump in, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do in your own words.
Yeah, sure. So I am a DOL Employment Facilitator. And what that really entails is I help transitioning service members and their spouses in their transition from the military workforce to the civilian workforce. So I do everything from helping them translate their skills and abilities so that civilian employers know what they can do and what they can bring to the table. I help them with their resumes and building out their LinkedIn profiles and basically working on, all of the branding so that when they are transitioning into the civilian workforce, civilian hiring managers know what they're about and they can speak the language.
Yeah, that is awesome, first off. and that's why I was excited to talk with you, because this is a topic that I've really been wanting to address for a long time. Yeah. And my team and I are also really trying to bridge that gap, because we do know that those that have provided service, for our country in the military that are transitioning, it's not easy. And I mean, there's literally a matter of days in between them leaving service and then trying to, get into civilian life and get into the workforce and assimilate. Yes. So just first off, how did you get in? Like, how did that passion come to you to get into this?
Yeah, so I am actually a military spouse and my husband is also transitioning, but right as I was finishing my master's in education, my next door neighbor was doing this program and I was like, what is it that you do? And she's like, I want you to be a facilitator for this. And she brought me on board because she thought, I have a background in human resources as well.
Okay.
And so she's like, you're the perfect person for this. You've been a hiring manager, and as a military spouse, you've moved around so much, and you've successfully gotten into like big corporations and, remarketed yourself. You're the perfect person to be in this field. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. I have such a passion for the military community, being a part of it. And I know how difficult and that struggle between moving from that military sector to the civilian life can be, especially for the ones who have been in the military for 20, 30 years. This is the first time in their adult life where they're going into the civilian sector to work. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking and they're not really sure where to go next.
So talk with us a little bit about, like, how can we help? What do we do? What are some things that I think the workplace can do? We talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a huge topic and it's so important. Yes. But sometimes it feels like, veterans are kind of left out of that, right? But they're not. They're actually a part of that. So what are some things that, human resources and other corporations can do to help bridge the gap, to be more intentional, I think, and more active in helping service members assimilate, find jobs, be successful, and really be able to sustain what's happening?
Yeah, so there's so many things that the companies can do. One of the big initiatives that the DOL has is they call it the Medallion Program, and it's really like you set up a recruiting team and a talent acquisition, a talent team that actively hires the veterans as well as helps to retain them. So it's like, working with them to assimilate to the culture, and, thinking about what are those things that they really are looking for. I mean, the active duty service members, every single one of them, their priorities are leadership. Their priorities are teamwork. Their priorities are, they're really looking for a place where, unlike the civilian sector where you can bounce from job to job, they are told where to go and when to go. And so they have to learn to work with whoever is there. There is no option of, oh, I'm not going to work with this person because he happens to be here. So, they're tenacious. They are the kind of people who solve problems. And if you can develop a culture where they feel like they're being taken and that their word means something and they're part of a team, and that can help a lot. That can go a long way.
I like that you just mentioned everything that you just said, because I know quite a few people that have served that have also mentioned that there's some really great qualities, right, that have been learned in service, like camaraderie, loyalty, teamwork, right? There's a resilience, and not enough companies are capitalizing on those strengths that can really make a huge impact in the workforce. So I know you just mentioned a few, but what are a couple more that you would say, like, hey, these are some phenomenal qualities that we typically see that can really be a game changer and very beneficial to the workspace today?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about is how innovative we are in terms of finding solutions to really difficult problems when there's not a lot of resources. I know there's this misconception out there because military budget is so huge that service members have an unlimited budget that they can tap into in order to get whatever they want done. But the reality is service members every day are working with sometimes outdated equipment and having to figure out, well, how do I troubleshoot this when a part it's not even being built anymore, right? So they have just this innate ability to just take on a problem and say, okay, how do I solve this? There's never a situation where they're like, I can't do it, I'm just going to sit back and let it happen. They're always like, okay, what's the solution to this? And I think that's the most amazing thing to see happen. And it's one of the most valuable things that we could have in employers or employees, as you're looking for somebody who's going to be in there, helping you solve really complex issues or even like the little things, it's not going to faze them because they've dealt with bigger.
Right. I mean, you summed it up. They've dealt with bigger. Which is, I thank you so much for sharing that. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to say something that's not true, but generally speaking, from my understanding in speaking with individuals that have left the service, there's typically like a 3-day rollover, right? Like they have 3 days of re-assimilating, 3 days or 3 weeks. It might be 3 weeks, but I think it's 3 days of re-assimilating, and then they got to go and fly on their own. Is that accurate?
Well, it's different for It's a little bit different if you're a retiree or how you're separating from the military. So it really depends on how they're separating from the military. But it can be something where it's like next day, or it can be, for some of the retiring military members, they get there's a skills bridge program that I want to bring out. It's basically for the last 6 months of their military service, they can be shopped out to an internship-like program where they're being paid by the military, but they're working for civilian employers. So that's one of the programs that I think that's maybe the easiest to get into, because it's basically like an internship. It's there's no skin off of the corporation's back, but you get this really highly skilled employee to come work at your company and show you what they can do.
So
right?
Tell us more about that. For anyone that's listening, how does the corporation learn about it? And then how does that connection get made? Because I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that might want to do some research on that.
Absolutely. And I can get you more of that information when we're offline. But okay. The DoD Skill Bridge program is actually run by the Department of Defense, and there are contact people within each base that runs that program locally. There's also other ways you can get into it nationally. But I can give you more of that information. I'm not really sure how to get involved, but I know that, I'm usually the one.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes and then as like a link or something, but I know that there'll probably be a lot of people that want to, probably do more research and just see how they can get into that program and also use it as a recruiting tool, right? If they can support the internship and then hopefully bring them on as an employee afterward.
Exactly.
Awesome. Jacqueline, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to share in particular with this topic, just because I think it's so important? What else can we do? Corporations, again, individuals that are, talent acquisition, that are recruiting. What else can we do to go out there and help support the transition and bring more service members into the civilian workplace?
So one of the things that I think they just need to get comfortable with understanding what are these skill sets that the transitioning these service members have to offer to your organization, and really think about, what are my personal, one of the things that we talk about in DEI is like what are your personal biases, and what are the things that you have that are keeping you from hiring them, and what are the things that are standing in the way of really welcoming a service member. Things like, don't ask them, have they been to war? That's not acceptable, right? Not all service members have been to war.
Yeah.
And I've heard too many of those stories where some service members have gone out and that was one of the questions that was asked of them. And I was like, so it's like really focusing on their skills and abilities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And I think that there's a lot of validity there, especially with unconscious bias that some of us are not aware of, right? They're unconscious. Yeah. So I think that's a great point. Thank you. It's really been great to have you on our show. It's such an important topic. I'd love to talk about this even more. We'll bring you back. And definitely any you want to send our way, we'll add them in the show notes. Any resources that we can provide, the more the merrier. I would love to jump into our power section of the interview. This is like,
okay.
Don't worry, you'll be fine. Just a couple quick questions, and we're just looking for some short answers. The first is, we always love to ask that, if you can leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. Mm-hmm. What would your one golden nugget be to the audience?
Be good to each other.
Great. See, no, you're good. Okay. And then we always love to talk about values. So what's one value that's a complete non-negotiable for you, something that you absolutely will not budge on?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many. For me, it is integrity.
Yeah.
That is one that I just, be who you are and do it intentionally.
Yeah, great. And lastly, before we go into the final question, how do we get a hold of you? Where can we find you and just connect with you if people want to reach out? LinkedIn, what links, anything? Yeah. What's the best way?
I am available on LinkedIn. And if you drop me a message and let me know that you saw me on the Rise Up for You, I will make sure to connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And lastly, as you know, we're Rise Up for You. That's the podcast. It's the work that we do. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase, rise up for you?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I see that as owning your own growth. If you want something to change, you should initiate it within yourself first, and then it will manifest itself in your actions.
Yeah, I love that. Manifest itself in those actions. Absolutely. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such an honor. Absolutely. We have some comments in the chat. So please, afterwards you can check it out. I know we see something from David. He was mentioning somebody else that's doing a great GFA program to help veterans get back into the industry and to civilian life. So check out those comments. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Jacqueline. And we will see you next week. We're the Rise Up For You podcast. Sometimes I'm by myself, and sometimes I bring amazing guests like Jacqueline. And absolutely, you can listen to us on every single podcast, major platform. And we release new episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're on YouTube. And of course, you can check us out at our website, riseupforyou.com. Jacqueline, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.